Okay, so I'm going to start the recording. Jacob, you're going to go ahead and go into a little bit about whatever you want to get into so we can get you out of here. We're also going to do the Q&A part if you have specific questions for Jacob after he starts. So go ahead.
Yeah, and if you guys can't hear me or I'm breaking up, let me know. I'm not sure what my service is down here next to the ocean, but I think it's good enough.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so where do you want me to get started?
So go ahead and get started with a little bit of your background, your philosophy, talk a little bit about the history of the programs you've been at, and any advice you have as a creative. That's a usually pretty good base. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sure. I graduated from Tennessee in 2014. I worked under Joe Harrington there. I was very lucky to work under a guy like that. Louisville, I worked under Jake Stroot. I was very lucky to work under a guy like that. And at Ohio State, I worked under Quiz and Joe Stanek, or alongside them, I guess. I guess we were kind of separate departments. But and then at LSU, obviously, you guys all know Doug. So I've been really lucky to work with some insanely talented, awesome video coordinators. And kind of be that, post position. It's a growing industry. It's evolving. And, I've just been lucky to kind of take every job I've had, I've been an intern or the first full-time, guy in the spot. So it's a fun industry to be a part of, but I'm also at the same time very lucky. Can we keep going or?
Yeah. You can keep going. Yeah, you can keep going. You're good. Take as much time to talk about whatever you like as you need, and then we'll bounce it to the other panelists.
Oh, yeah, sure. I guess I'll just touch on my philosophy a little bit. I've been very lucky to be around some good programs in addition to great video coordinators and kind of learning from what it means to be a part of a great culture and bringing that attitude to your videos. So, I don't look at myself as a video guy. I look at myself as somebody who builds relationships with the players, with the personnel, with the staff, everybody. And then from that, we figure out how we can best express themselves through video or other digital content, just kind of be that facilitator. It helps when you win. It helps when you got a great team. And it helps when you've got an administration that believes in you and will buy into you and sees value in what you do, regardless of how many wins, how much your team is winning or whatever. At the end of the day, what we do is valuable, and the value of it shouldn't be necessarily determined by wins and losses, right? But how we affect young men's lives and kind of help build them up, and that's kind of the way I see it. It's easy to kind of promote the top tier guys, but at the same time, if you can help a guy build his brand, do a video for him that, maybe he feels like he's not getting a lot of love or nobody notices him or whatever, you build that relationship with him, you do something for him, and it really can mean the world to him, and just make them really kind of embrace everything they're doing. Because, at the end of the day, these players give a lot, right? So it's, what I see what we do is very valuable, but at the same time, it's only as valuable as we say it is, right? We really have to put a value on what we do in addition to just video, building those relationships, kind of, trying to help mold the next generation of leaders, honestly. You can't just be a video guy anymore. You got to be able to do a lot of different things, and, whatever it takes to be the best at the job, that's what we try to do.
Awesome. I'm going to just keep you on the line, and then I'll bounce around to our other panelists so they can introduce themselves and etc. If there's at any point where you need to get out of here, you just let me know, okay? You can just message me or let me know.
I'm good. Keep going.
Okay, great. So go ahead and whether it's a combination of Blake and Joe or just Joe and then just Blake, talk a little bit a piece about the goings on at Penn State, your backgrounds, etc. It's your guys' turn now. So
go ahead. Start us off, Joe.
All right. So first I wanted to thank everybody for being here. Means a lot. Didn't think that, it's crazy to think that some people want to hear what we got to say, honestly, for me. So one of the big things that I wanted to touch on was, just like Jacob said, relationships are such a big thing in this business. I was lucky to be able to kind of catapult in my career from going from all FCS as an undergrad, and then going to 2 different FCS, and then now making this jump to Penn State. And that was solely because of networking and getting to know people around the business. Like Jimmy said, like me and him kind of got tight when I was at Elon. you got to take every little opportunity you can to get to know people. I mean, I think one of the big reasons that I was able to get this job at Penn State was because, you know, I talked to Blake, and then the guy that was in the position I'm in now, Nick, when we were at CSVA. And I mean, who's to say if I never did that I never ended up in this position. So I think one of the biggest things that I really wanted to touch on today, while yes, post-production, there's so much stuff we could talk about, but networking is such a key in this business, and it can make or break you. You know, your reputation, how people perceive you, and everything has everything to do with how far you're going to go in this business. So one of the big things that I did want to touch on today was please make sure that you take every opportunity, and by being here, you are taking a huge opportunity to network and get to know people that are in this business. If it's something you truly want to do, you know, networking is such a huge key. I'll let Blake kind of talk more about philosophy because, you know, 5 Savvy speaks for itself. But that was something that I really wanted to touch on, was that, you know, that's what's elevated me in my career, I believe, personally, not just, you know, my work. I like to think that I do good work, but personally, I think my networking is really what's enabled me to get to this point in my career. Blake, if you want to kind of take off.
Yeah, no, I think, Joe, like that, you made some really good points there. Some things that I want to also echo, the importance of relationships and networking. Kind of giving a background a little bit on myself. I honestly was to the point where I was out of the business, basically. Like, I was unpaid when I was at Kent State. They had me on a contract. It was like a 10-month contract. May hit, which was like an unpaid month. And it was my second year, and I was living in my office for a year. I was on, you know, food stamps, that sort of stuff. And I told the head coach, hey, man, I want to go back with my parents for a little bit and try to make some money, just something. You know what I mean? They ended up taking care of me, got me down to CSVA back in 2013. I remember, like, I heard Penn State had a job opening up for production, and it was like the last night, and I went up to Jevin Stone and talked to him about it. I remember going home, like, there's no way, like, Penn State's going to call me. Like, just no way. And, like, I'll never forget that moment, like, Jevin calling me up, wanting me to come up for an interview. And I was like, this is awesome. And I just got my foot in the door. Thankfully, like, he hired me. Really, really cool casual interview. And if you guys know Jevin, that's his style. And we just hit it off from then. And I've been very fortunate. For one, I want to thank him, Jevin Stone, Coach Franklin, and our staff, for one, giving me the opportunity to continue to grow. Another guy I want to thank is Michael Hazel, our Director of Operations. He's one guy that's challenging me every single day. And I know a lot of people on this call have been challenged by somebody or have some sort of influence, and he's another one I want to thank. And a lot of it just comes down to, one, my philosophies are you got to give people autonomy. It's developed through relationships, and it's all about teamwork. I didn't do this by myself. None of us have been here by ourselves. It's our parents that's helped us raise us. There's somebody in our life that's helped us get to where we are today, and it's going to be that way to the end of time, in my opinion. I really take strong ownership on, like, trying to do the best I can as a teacher for the students. Like, we established an internship a few years back where, you know, students get college course credit, that sort of stuff, and that's part of my gig. And I take a lot of ownership in it, and I've noticed as time have grown and I've developed more into that role, and there's still got a lot of way to improve, but as I've developed more into that role, I feel like our brand as a production department has continued to grow. We're growing in numbers, but we're also continuing to grow. I think at the end of the day, it's about challenging other people and trying to get the best out of them. And it's a tough part of the job, but, you know, I'm being challenged by our coaching staff, our operations guy, Jevin Stone, and I got to do the same thing to my staff. And I think at the end of the day, if you can have some sort of equal balance where it's not all work all the time, but there's some equal balance in there, I think you can really accomplish some really good things. So, you know, that's kind of my story and a little bit about my philosophy.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, George, whenever you're ready, talk a little bit about your background, philosophy, etc. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So I'm George Claibourne. I'm at 21 years in the video business. I'm at Appalachian State. I've been here for the last 6. I went to Auburn University, mass communications, radio, television, film. And back in those days, we were still doing the editing with the slider, the rollers and things like that. So, you know, I'm a do-it-yourselfer, always have been. The wave of kids these days that are do-it-yourselfers are light years beyond where I ever was. And I'm glad to have them. And that leads to, you know, really my first point of of how I do so well, and I think we do well at Appalachian State, is that we've got good people. And so surround yourself with good people that want to do the right thing, that want to work hard, that are familiar with what sacrifice and grinding and all those particular types of words are about, are extremely important. Having been at multiple different places that didn't have great production or even a great football backgrounds, it was a struggle to try to learn new things. When I was at the very first editor I got on in football, if anyone remembers this, raise your hand. Pinnacle Purple. It was Exos. There you go, Jevin. It was Exos program that came with the software, and that was my first really dab into it. And then once I got to Memphis, we didn't have a production side. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have all the different avenues. So the highlights that I was making were strictly for the players. That was it. And it was done within Exos. So I had to create my own effects within Exos by just doing, quick stuff the same way over and over again to get just some kind of different effect than them just watching coach's video. That was also where I decided to start filming myself instead of relying on TV copies, and hopefully change Memphis for the better. Moved on to Washington, where I didn't do really any production at all, except for watching other people and learning a little bit about finance. So when I got to Louisville and told them that I could do production work as the exclusive job or semi-exclusive job I had, I buried myself in a classroom for about a week and taught myself the old what was the old I forget those tutorials that you could buy. Had a female name. I don't know. Either way, buried myself in there and got pretty good at it, I think, and good enough to keep my job at Louisville for 4 years. So here, and like I said, hiring the right people is so important. Max Renfro is my fourth student director of production since I've been here. I'd like to have students be in charge of production so I can handle the coaches side. But we talk about concepts, we talk about messages that we want to relate to the players, to the fans, things that the coaches are saying that are relatable to everyone. You got to listen to them and do what they want. Someone else mentioned earlier, I think it was Jacob, being able to translate a coach's vision to your players and to your fans, and to get better engagement, to get better recruits. We are the ambassadors for our college. Not a lot of people know what Appalachian State is if it weren't for our football team. So our video guys, it's a lot of pressure for our video guys to be good at what we're good at. And thankfully, we've got a fantastic campus. That will lead to my next point, is we got a fantastic campus. Campus/canvas. Use your campus as a canvas. And we've been really lucky to be able to have one of the best ones, I think, in the country to take advantage of. And I think we do a good job of showing everybody what it's like in Boone, North Carolina, whether you've ever been here or not. Without rambling on too much right now, this is I want to go ahead and say thanks for listening and having me here, Jimmy, and inviting us. And I look forward to what the next hour brings.
Awesome. Now, I have questions coming into me on the chat or my chat. Now, a really simple question that we can all start off on is, you guys have been doing this for a number of years. How do you keep fresh ideas? How do you guys stay ahead of the curve? And whoever wants to start can start and then bounce off each other. So.
Well, I'll go ahead and just say that, again, hiring the right people is important. So I'm going to let Max answer that. Max is really good at relating with the players, taking different ideas, thinking outside the box, and running with them. So, ladies and gentlemen, Max Renfro.
I'm gonna be honest. It's kind of a hard question because most of our videos, we kind of come up with the idea 10 minutes before. But I'd say just following other creatives on all social medias. You can get inspiration, try to replicate, not copy, but replicate their ideas. And also YouTube, there's so many tutorials out there and things that you can turn into football videos just using the tutorials. That's probably about it, because most of our videos, again, 10 minutes before we're scrambling to come up with an idea, but it always comes out good in the end.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate it. Anybody else on how do you keep fresh? How do you keep new ideas?
I think it's kind of, embracing the next wave of talent too. I think the best ideas I've ever gotten were from some of the most untalented kids I've been around, but at the same time they had a vision and they kind of saw things differently, or they saw something that, hey, maybe a recruit would like this or whatever. And it's because I had a great relationship with that student where, he wasn't worried about him doing the video. He was worried about this idea being made, and really kind of, just embracing anybody who has ideas. You never know where that next great idea can come from. So it's definitely something where you just keep those relationships open.
I'd say one of the things that most recently, like this year, that I've kind of realized, and some people might think I'm crazy for saying this, but like templates, like say like Envato, and like looking on Envato and just scrolling through there for a minute and kind of seeing like some of the stuff that's on there could sometimes really fuel an idea for me. Whether that's, going through and you see like some really cool transitions and that just strikes something in your mind that creates a video. I mean, but that's one thing that I've realized this year, just scrolling through stuff like that, and not necessarily just using that template, but maybe you take that template and manipulate it in a way that it works with what you have in your mind. So that's kind of one thing that I've really kind of come up on this year.
Yeah, I know from like my perspective is like, I feel like you got to be diverse in your research process. Like a lot of times, like, yeah, we're going to study like what other schools are doing across the board on social media. And you've got like your handful of like, say like some of your favorite inspirational schools that you follow. But I also think there's a lot of value in studying other sports and even things that aren't even related to sports. Like Fortune 500 companies spend a lot of money on professional production teams. I mean, I even remember seeing, I think it was like a Gatorade or Nike commercial, and it was incredible. I don't know how they did it. But it was like, it had Saquon Barkley in it, and he was like in New York City, and it was amazing. And then I also follow some like Hollywood film type stuff on Instagram, on like behind the scenes on how they shoot stuff with low budget cameras all the way up to high end budget stuff. And I think just like breaking yourself up from like, just, hey, I'm not just going to do football. I'm going to see what else is out there, even in other countries, what they're doing, that sort of stuff. I think is really important.
That's awesome. Next question I have, this might start at you, Blake, actually, because you have an internship program. What are you looking for when you try to hire a post-production intern or somebody on your staff? What are you looking for from them? What makes them stand out?
I think like the most important thing is culture. Honestly, yeah, you want somebody that can potentially edit, but like some of our best production students like didn't even have production experience even. You know what I mean? Some of our best ones did, but some of them didn't either. So like production quality and like what their talent level is when they come in isn't as important to me as like, one, like, will they fit in our culture that we want to have in our building? Can they relate to Coach Franklin? Can they pick up on like the quick pace of the environment in sports? You know how it is, like you don't have a week to make like a 30-second video. We've got to turn stuff around quickly because that's the world we live in. So it's more about like work ethic and will they really fit our culture? And at the end of the day, like, do they understand football a little bit? Like if I say, hey, like we need a defensive tackle highlight or a linebacker highlight or something like that, do they know those sort of positions? Because if you're spending time to teach everything down the board, like it could take a while, especially when you're dealing with an internship that may only last a semester to a year. So to me, like a lot of like, I think I heard one of you say, it might've been George, saying that, students are coming in with so much more skill level than it was maybe 10 years ago when we started out. And I totally agree with that. A lot of times, like students from somewhere have that sort of ability to even, they know Premiere to enough where I can start getting them going on it, and then we're okay. But really, it comes down to really that culture fit and do they fit our environment.
Anybody else have anything to add on hiring somebody? What makes a candidate stand out?
I have a question. This question was actually asked in another panel, and I thought it was quite interesting. It's kind of resonated with me, but I think the question is, do you look for in a student, I think it was, do you remember what I'm talking about, Jimmy? Experience or hunger?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Well, I'll say experience is nice, but I feel like, I mean, I don't know. That's a great question, because Max himself came in with some pretty good experience that he'd done himself, which he was hungry as well. You know, he had both qualities that you just mentioned. So, man, I don't know what I would do with one or the other. I would probably take experience over hunger, just because they've got something visual that you can see right now. Now, if you're talking or interviewing them and you can sense a lot of hunger there, then have the experience. I've taken chances on people all the time that turn out really well. For example, we have a female that does basketball highlights for us, and I never would have thought she would be a production person until she just decided to get in there and start doing it. She asked me if she could do it. I said sure. She started doing it. She's really good at it now. Now she won't work with. Now I can't get her to work football because she's so busy with those other ones. But she had that drive. If they've got that hunger, you'll find out pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question to ask, and it kind of goes along with my statement. Like, we've had some experienced students, but like on the same end, like we've had some with zero experience, but they were extremely hungry. And I just think of one off the top of my head right now as probably one of the hungriest people I've ever been around, to be honest with you. And they just excelled in such a fast pace that, I mean, it's faster than anybody I've ever seen. So, like, to me, if I had to pick one or the other, it's hunger to me, because I think at the end of the day, Premier is Premier. It's like, I just heard a statement. You just go on YouTube and learn some of the skills. But I think the hunger is where you can separate yourself from somebody that's good at what it takes to be great. You know what I mean? If you look at like some of the stuff that makes great athletes, it's the same thing. It's hunger. You know what I mean? They all have the talent. You know, how do you elevate yourself above all? And that's what it comes down to, in my opinion. That's what I want.
Awesome. Jacob, you have anything to add? Sorry, I saw you unmuted while George was talking.
All good. I would definitely say it's 110% hunger for me. If they've really got hunger, they've probably got some type of experience as well. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have any experience, you know, I can teach them. I don't care. I can mold them from scratch. So that's a good thing in itself for me. At the end of the day, they got to bring something that nobody else can bring. And the lowest common denominator for that, for me, is always going to be hunger. And in that, they'll find something unique in themselves that they can bring that nobody else can. You know, experience, you can teach anybody this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now I have an in-person question. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Actually, this is Mike DeRoche from Sony. For those of you that are looking at a still shot of me with a different shirt on, that's a bit weird. Hold on a second. Let me make sure that I got something going here. There we go. Hey, through the magic of Zoom. So, hey, those of you that know me, I'm Mike DeRoche from Sony. I'm a vendor that worked with the CSVA for many years, but not just there, but also in broadcast stuff. I wanted to follow up on that last question and then add another question in. But just like your football teams, right? And you recruit who you bring in, you have your pool of talent, and you're going to have your role players. You find out who's going to fit in that best role. So you make those decisions based on what you know you have. But yeah, work ethic just in the corporate landscape is no different. You could have the most talented person out there, and if they don't have the work ethic, they're not going to be as valuable to you, because you're right. You can teach people these tools if they're resourceful. So the question I have for the group at large here would be, since you guys are wearing so many different hats, right? You're not just Coach's Video people, and many of you are actually Coach's Video, and you're the Spielbergs, and you're the corporate IT head, and you're this and that, and you're the relationship expert to maintain that level of access that's really going to help you out in a production environment. What portion are you guys in your departments dedicating to getting your skills ramped up? Are you allowed a certain amount of training? Like right now, some people I would presume are digging in to learn some new tools and new tricks that's going to help you in the coming season. But is there actually a dedicated window where you guys are expected to kind of develop? Is there any time for that? I mean, I work with you guys a lot. Usually the CSVA show is your 1 week a year to breathe. So it's nice to see everybody at that time. But right now, and in a normal situation, are you guys actually allocated, say, a week of developmental training or something where you can bone up on some technologies?
Thank you, Mike. That's an awesome question. Go ahead.
I would say that the best time to learn new skills is on the job, right, in projects. So if I have a big project coming up, I see it as an opportunity to try out a new effect or new skill. I'm going to learn that kind of on the project as I go and figure it out then. That's the best way to do it, because then I'm actually utilizing it in the real world right then and there. For me, it's pretty hard to learn a new skill and then not know when I'm going to use it, and then I'll forget about it, right? So as long as I got a project built for that, I'll learn the new skill, build the project, and kind of have that saved in my toolbox.
Yeah, I know from like my perspective, I think it's a couple different ways. Like in a normal calendar year, I do like to do some self-reflection and some self-professional development. Like I'd say like in a traditional calendar year, it's usually in the summer when we finally get through spring ball, maybe May, coaches hit the road recruiting. I know that I have more of like a dedicated release schedule, that sort of stuff. You know, you've got your routine workouts and some camps and stuff coming up. So you kind of plan ahead on your workflow and that sort of thing. So I usually like to then at that time take a step back, reevaluate what I've been doing, figure out, hey, where can I improve? And then also study what other places are doing. Because a lot of times, like, our noses are so close to the ground, it's very hard for, like, creatives to even look up and really study what else is going on around them, honestly. So a lot of times I like to do that would be, like, in the off season when things start to slow down, and then try some stuff out either on my own when I'm freelancing, doing some stuff in the summer, those sort of things. And a lot of stuff is focused on, like, camera shooting, different editing techniques, how to be more efficient, those sort of things. Is I try to narrow down how can I be quicker on the job and produce more, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of my routine.
Yeah, I'd say
Cool. Thank you, guys.
What Jacob said about you know, when he sees an opportunity to do something, he wants to learn it and put it in immediately. I know Max in my crew. I see Hayden is in here also. These guys, when they want to learn something, I feel like they tend to do it together. Someone will look at it, they'll learn how to do it, and then the other guy will be looking right over their shoulder, or they'll be able to relate to them. Hey, this is how we're going to do this, and this is how we can do that. Max, touch on that a little.
Yeah, definitely. When just one of us learns, it's so much easier to teach it to someone else. So if one person watches a tutorial, sees an effect that they want to replicate, we'll just teach it to the other person, and everyone knows. That's a great way to learn new skills really fast, is having someone else teach you it.
Yeah, and learn it from your friends who've already dug into those. Sometimes those YouTube videos can be, you know, pretty droning, and or you don't like the person's voice or something like that. So to have, you know, a fellow editor be able to relate to you what they've already learned, again, what's going to build a better relationship between themselves and hopefully produce a better product.
It's awesome. Now, this is a question that I personally am wondering from the panel and from anybody else in the chat, how they're going to tackle this. Have you guys thought about or have already adapted to the upcoming name, image, and likeness rule changes in the NCAA? What are your guys' thoughts on it?
I mean, I can speak up on that topic right now. I know that in our department, it's a big discussion. It's not just falling on me, myself, and Joe, and even our department. Like right now, obviously, from my understanding, is it hasn't been employed yet. So there's still some things that we're ironing out and that sort of stuff. But I have seen some schools already starting to implement some things, such as Ohio State. I saw some recent things that they've done to promote their players' images and that sort of stuff. So like right now, like we do not actually have like an action plan on, hey, this is exactly how we're going to approach it, but we're already working on it, and it kind of starts at the higher ups first and kind of trickles down to us and kind of direction. So I'm just kind of waiting to feel it out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really have anything to add to that. What Blake said about it, you know, it's got to trickle down from the top first, and we just haven't had a chance to get, you know, to grasp any of what the new rules are, to be honest. I don't.
Jimmy, you're muted.
Jacob, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I would say that there's a lot of unknowns with it right now. All that legislation is still being worked out, and it's going to be really crazy. I feel bad for our compliance guys because that's just going to be a whole other world they got to deal with. And it's going to be fun, though. I mean, places like LA, man, I'll tell you what, that's going to make it a lot easier to pitch our city to guys.
Great.
I was going to say, to that point too, I do see, like, and this is just my personal opinion, this has nothing to do with, Penn State or anything like that, but I think it's going to create a lot of jobs for people like us, because it's going to become more, there's going to be more requests for creatives, like doing just solely stuff for the players. It's not going to be, because me and Blake we're already tied up and doing enough just for our Penn State social media alone. I mean, I can't imagine trying to do, 100 guys that are coming with requests that they have. I really think that there's going to be a lot of positions created because of all this.
Awesome. Now I have one of mine that wants to ask an in-person question. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey guys, I'm Josh Poland from Buffalo. My question was really, where do you guys find music to use in your edits, and how do you guys have like licenses with companies, or do you tend to use royalty-free stuff?
I mean, I think that's a great question. We use APM. We're licensed through APM as a university. So our university is taking a hard stance on it. If we don't own it, we don't use it. That includes music, sound effects, photos, video, anything we're putting out socially or on broadcast television, we have to have rights to it. So it makes our job challenging, but it's what's been said, and the university wants protected. So that's the approach we take.
Yeah, to echo, like, we are on also. We're on also. We just got on last year, and
Sorry, coming in a
main.
little, George.
Is this better?
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
I'll take my finger off the space bar. So just to echo what Blake said, APM is the way we've gone at App State also. It is it's worry-free. Some of it, I think my guys have had more fun looking for cheesy, goofy songs than serious songs. But we found a lot of really good stuff to use in season as well. And you can't risk these days having your Twitter account taken down for a month at a time, which is what happened to us last year. And it wasn't from anything that the current staff did. It was something that was done back in 2017. And that's when we were just using whatever we wanted, Future and Waka Flocka and all this stuff that the guys like, we can't use anymore. So we try to, APM is great because you can just type in Waka Flocka and then find Waka Flocka sound-alikes for you. It's a testy subject, the music is, because I know when I was the main person doing the creative videos anywhere, the music is where you start, and then you build everything around it. That's how I did it, unless I had something really unique that I wanted to do. Being able now to do it, and maybe, we actually create a couple of different versions of each video each week. Reason being is we have some that we still want to show the players that has the most popular, the baby song of the week, or whatever is popular this week, and yet we can't throw that out to the public. So we got to find an APM song that's somewhat got the same kind of beats per minute, same kind of pace to it, same good sounding song that we can pop on there, send it to the public through the social media outlets, and it won't get dinged by Twitter, it won't get taken down by Facebook, anything like that.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything to add before I keep going? Okay. Great question. In my opinion here, do you foresee a need or a lack thereof for future hiring in regards to possible COVID adjustments to college football? Take your time and think about it. It's a big one.
Say that again. Can you repeat it?
Oh, sorry. Do you foresee a need or a lack thereof for future hiring in regards to possible COVID adjustments to college football?
I mean, in my opinion, Jimmy, I think it all just comes down to the state of our economy. And if we're even going to be having sports in general, I mean, if we go a season where we get canceled in the middle of the year for football, that's going to affect the landscape of college athletics overall. So, I mean, if we can get back on our feet, I think we'll be okay in like a year or so. But I know is right now there's a lot of universities out there on hiring freezes. So, I mean, that right there tells you that there ain't going to be job opening up.
Anybody else have an opinion on the landscape of hiring post-COVID?
Well, I think it could also depend on if your school is a private or public school too. I mean, I think it'll vary case by case.
Yeah, I think not only private, public, but Power 5, Group of 5. There's just different kinds of money being spread around at different places. We're all getting a cut back, but 20% at App State is a lot different from 20% at Penn State.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Mike. We have a question.
Well, it's not really a question. I just want to chime in on that. If I can, speak from a little bit of a different perspective, that is not in a campus exclusive thought process here, is right now, this is a survival of the fittest. And I'm not trying to scare you guys, but this is a case where if you're not making yourself inexpendable to your organization, your program, whatever, then you might be at risk. It was just mentioned by JB. He's 100% right. Private versus public, there's going to be a difference there as well. But whether you're in the corporate environment like myself and my clients that I work directly with, if you're not looking forward and adjusting how things are done in the school level and then at your job level, then you're basically falling behind. It's no different from, say, a high school student sitting on his butt playing video games right now when he should be getting better and practicing. When the pause button is hit, if you're not armed with more tools, you're basically at risk. Where I'm going with this is something you guys all need to consider, that I'm dealing with the CBS networks, all these regional sports networks. They're all about the idea of moving their content off location and putting it somewhere where everybody has access to it no matter where they're at. All they need is an ISP interface, right? They just need an internet connection. This is something you need to put your own situation that as long as you can tell stories, and therefore as long as you can get access to the content, then you are able to basically push that content out. But if you need to dial into your campus that you can't gain access to, or if that's where the content is and you're limited there, that's a problem. And what the linear networks are finding out, which these content factories are finding out, is if they don't actually have their content somewhere that's available at all times, which is pretty much the cloud now, they're at risk. So I just put that out there as a reminder that's outside of your own immediate thing, but keep that in mind because that's actually where corporate America is heading right now. And anybody that's not basically arming themselves to be more valuable as a value add to their employer, they're at risk. Not a question, more of a statement. Sorry.
No, you're good. Those are all awesome points.
Yeah, great points.
So one question that I know I wanted to ask all of you personally is that if you could look back at your first year or whenever you first started, right? What would you tell your younger self?
Well, since I've got to look back the first, give me a minute to think.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get all philosophical or whatnot, but just.
I would just say, especially starting out with the industry the way it is in the post-production perspective, you're going to take a lot of jobs you don't want to take, making not a lot of money. Like my advice would be, don't worry about, too much about what you're making or necessarily where it's even at, but as long as you can make great content and as long as you can, go to CSBA every year or network somehow, you'll be good. But there's no easy way to get started. You're probably gonna have to take a job you don't want to take, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know looking back on my time, if I had basically to what Mike just said, if I hadn't done a little, I could have always done a little more to make myself more important to where I was, right? I was making $1,000 a year the first 3 years I was doing this. Not $1,000 a month, first 3 years I was doing this. and that's a lot more than Max is making working for me right now. So you know, being able to diversify what I can do, being able to become more valuable, that's something that everyone could learn how to do more of at any point in your life, not just the first year. But I don't know, man. I had a pretty good teacher my first year. It was Joe Lyle at South Carolina, and he's my brother-in-law too. So it helps to have someone there that I can call when I do need questions about how I can continue to deal with video and coaches and you know, sports information, media. You know, to have someone else to find yourself someone that's been in the business for a while. If you're younger, if you're just starting out, to talk to, that's not your boss. You know, maybe he was your boss, and or you've got someone else, a teacher, a professor, or anything like that. Find someone to let you know you're doing the right thing. That's what he does for me all the time. He's always telling me, dude, you always have questions. You're always worried about it, but you're doing the right thing.
I think those are some really good points, especially Jake. That was really good stuff, man. I remember recalling back on when I first started. I feel like I moved like 10 times in like the first year and a half. Like I would tell myself, like, be ready to hustle. Like this is a hustle business. Like when you feel like you've arrived, you haven't done anything. Like be ready to keep grinding, innovate, and don't get complacent on anything, because as soon as you do that, somebody's gonna pass you up, and you got to be willing to always continue to grow and learn.
Yeah, I wanted to also echo what Jacob said. That was great, man. I think one of the big things that I would say to myself looking back is like just keep pushing, man. Like when I first started at Austin P, I was making $5,000 for the year, and they gave me like an apartment to stay in. And honestly, like I was real down. I was like, this kind of sucks. Like Austin P at the time hadn't won a game in 2 years. We didn't win a single game the year that I was there, so I was really down about that. It's really, on top of that, it's really hard to make a hype video before every game when you haven't won a game all year and you don't really feel like you've got the best content. So I think if I could have gone back and just told, like, if I could go back, if it was a real thing, I would definitely tell myself keep pushing, because who would have thought that I'd be at Penn State in 4 years from there, so that's a big thing for me. If I could, it's crazy how fast things can change, and if you put your mind to it.
A great question about interacting with media teams that aren't directly internal. So how much interaction do you have with your SID marketing departments to push out content? Are you in meetings with them, etc.?
Yeah, I know Blake and I kind of went over this in our deal last month, but we have a content meeting every Wednesday. Sports information there, mornings there, graphic designers, the guys in the streaming area. We're all just get together to talk about new content. Max is on text and email threads about content and about what we want to do and how we want to do it and what's too much and what's too little. Right now is especially a touching time. How much is good to put out right now? If I'm not in touch with my sports information about what looks good and what doesn't, I don't have a finger on the pulse of it myself. So I rely on them for those things. We rely on them. So it's all a collaboration. We all work together to make sure we're doing the right things at the right times. But it's every week. Every week we get together.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else to add?
I'd just like to
go ahead. I didn't catch it. But
sorry, I was just gonna say, I agree with George. I've been in situations where it's kind of been, a one-man show and all that stuff. But the more you can work with the people that are in the overall athletic department, especially if they're dealing with the media and things like that, you're going to help yourself out so much. It just makes it so much easier when you've got a feel for everybody's plan for what the department is going through and all that. That's helped me out exponentially, and it just takes some of the burden off of you. You're not having to make all these decisions. You've got other people you can rely on, and if you've got a good relationship with them, you're going to you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I was just saying that we're the same way. Like we're a very big group of people, so like not one person takes on all responsibility. So we're a very big in checks and balances organization.
Awesome. This is a kind of funny question, but how do you deal with meddlesome head coaches or coaches that really are into your content and want to put their thumbprint on it?
Ask them how the game plan's going that week and if you can have a say in it and see what they say.
Perfect answer, Jacob. Yeah.
I guess, sorry, that's like the perfect answer. But have you had to have those difficult conversations just to follow up? And how have you handled it?
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Go ahead, Blake. We lost him for a sec. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate at Penn State that, you know, it's been, 7 seasons now with Coach, 6 seasons with Coach Franklin, that like it's kind of been, I think I talked to Joe about this the other day, about how this has kind of been like a training process with our staff. Like it's kind of like educating them on the process of doing it, because I could go back to my days at other schools and programs. You know, you see the cross coaches video where they just want stuff like immediately, like, give me this tape, and it's like production. It was the same thing, and it's kind of, you got to get in this like training process. Like, okay, take on the request. You don't have to, you know, be rude or anything about it, but sometimes just, you know, nicely let them know, I have a list of other things that this coach asked me for, the head coach has asked me for, this player's asked me for this. I'm going to do my best I can to get to it, and let them know, like, hey, in an expected date. Sometimes that's just enough to kind of educate them on letting them know how busy you are. Because, like, those coaches may not even know, like, if you're even working on something. You know what I mean? So, like, just letting them know, and that open communication, being professional about it, I think is the key. And, again, it goes back to what Joe said earlier with the relationships. Relationships just aren't us across the video world. Our relationships are with us, the students. Our relationships are with us, the players, the coaching staff, the administration. So it comes down to all that stuff and working together. When those coaches start to build that trust with you, and they come in and ask for something, right? Hey, coach, I can't get it to it right today, but I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. A lot of times they're like, oh, no worries about it. No worries about it. Because they know that you're working on something else, and they know that you are going to get to it when you can. That's at least our approach anyways. We're very
No, you got it. I would say as soon as you can build that trust with the coach that you are extremely good at your job. You know, half my job is how good the video is, right? But the other half is how good the coach thinks I think the video is, how confident I am in selling that, and how confident I am in, like, you know, explaining the process to him. Like, don't worry, we're going to get this done. It's going to be right. It's going to be exactly what you want. And, you know, no matter what you give them, be confident in it, because that's half the battle.
Yeah, being confident is a really, really good point, Jacob. I know I've been very lucky to not have meddling coaches too often. The ones that do, you know, stop pretty quickly once they realize they're better at this than I am, right? And that was established for me well before I got here by having quality work done. You know, Jake Stroop did a quality job of laying the foundation here, and I've just been lucky enough to continue it. And the coaches respect it. The coaches know we do a good job. The coaches know we are the reason why we are a main reason why we get good recruits here. People wanting to play, people understanding what football culture is. And the less they meddle, probably the better. They know it's not their forte. So if you have to tell them that, I would. I don't care.
Awesome. A follow-up to the marketing and SID department. Do you have anybody that works exclusively for football in that area? And for those that don't, how do you get around to closing that gap in terms of communication and whatnot outside of weekly meetings?
I mean, our main SID is our football guy, and everywhere I've been, that's been the case. Now, granted, they may have cared more about basketball at Memphis and Louisville at the time, but the main guy is in charge of football, and staying in touch with them is important. Being friends with them is important. He'll give you information you may not know. Video guys don't always get the information they need from the coaches. So, yeah, if you don't have, I don't know who asked the question, but if it's a smaller school that doesn't have someone designated strictly for football, I really don't know, because I've never been in that situation. So I'm sorry I can't answer that question really that well.
I'll say I can't really speak, because we have an SID for football here. But when I was at Elon, our SID was, over a bunch of different sports. I think for me, fostering that relationship with him was. Sorry, did you guys lose me there for a second? Yeah, okay.
You're back.
So fostering that relationship with him was going into his office every day and making sure that, we're talking about what's going on for us socially. Now, given when I was at Elon, I kind of had a lot of control over our social, but I was always making sure that he was a part of it and that he had a say in what I was doing. Whether or not, I wanted to go with what he was saying, I always made sure that I listened to what he said, and I made a point to have that relationship with him, just like everybody else has kind of said. It's really important that you establish that relationship and be friendly with him. I mean, me and that guy ended up being really close, and I still talk to him to this day. But that was something that was really important, was having that relationship with him, because just like George said, he gave me information that sometimes that I didn't even know about, that was coming up. Say if it was a player getting an award that week or something like that, that gave me the jump start to get on stuff.
Awesome. Anybody else? This one's pretty funny. This one is specifically from a student. I am just getting into the industry and want to know exactly what I'm getting into when it comes to work-life balance and how much time I am going to dedicate to this career.
We got you.
If you really want to do it, you'll dedicate all of your time to it. And at first, if you don't have anything else going on, that's all I had. Well, actually, the first couple of years, I had to work multiple jobs because I was older. I mean, I was 30 years old when I got involved. So, but every minute I had to try to do more, to learn something, I would try to fill it with talking to someone that could help, or trying to learn something on my own. Work-life balance is weird, especially if you're not married, because you get sucked into work really, really quickly, and it's hard to get out. Max is trying to balance work and school, and he does a lot for us. He and all the guys that work at they grind overnight, long hours. Max has only been awake for like an hour and a half, I think. But if he's still on his old schedule, but they get it done. And I guess that's just, it's a matter of, it's that old saying of, you get out of it what you want to put into it. What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. If you don't want to get a whole lot out of this, then don't put a whole lot into it, so you don't waste your time, wasting a lot of your life. Then you can have a better balance with whatever work you do find that you like and enjoy and want to do. I don't mean to sound like a pissy old man, but it's not for everybody. So you'll figure it out quickly.
Yeah, I would say, kind of going off that, whatever you do, do not let that be the first question you ask in the interview, because you will not get the job. It is important to keep work-life balance in mind, but at the same time, you do have to understand the environment, right? And we've been talking about it with coronavirus and, hiring, providing value and all that stuff. You don't provide the amount of value you provide goes up immensely the more that you work. It is what it is. You'll get more opportunities that way. People will rely on you more. You'll find more, that's what it is. You're going to be more valuable the more you work, and that's just the reality of it. But at the same time, it's not always about working harder. It's also about working smarter. And you just got to find ways to work smart. And when you do get that time off, you better be organized and enjoy it. And not just, sit at home and think about how you don't ever get any time off. And when you do, you just hate yourself. No, you got to enjoy your time off and really get away from work when you do have it. because when you come back to it, you got to be able to bring it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. All right. So one of the things that stuck out to me when I was at my first job at Austin P, the strength coach said to me one time, he goes, "Man, Joe, I can't account for you maybe being the best video guy ever or anything like that, but you know what? You're always there." And that really stuck with me, like not in a bad way, but it stuck with me because, the fact that I was always around and doing something, he noticed that and he saw that. And yeah, he can't really tell me if I'm a great video guy or not because he's the strength guy. He doesn't really deal with me that much besides when I was in there shooting and working out. But for him to say that, it showed okay, other people notice that. They notice how much you're around and they notice how much work you're putting in. And at that time, that's all my life was my work at that point because, I was living at a place away from home for the first time and, I didn't really know a whole lot of people. So I really just dove into my work and that allowed me to be successful there. So that's kind of my take on it. Be around and make yourself available to people. It really goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's one of those things that I feel like, when you have interns in the office and stuff, you kind of want them to see a little bit of it, but you don't want them to taste it quite yet because you want them to still be students and live that life. But I would have to think those that, and I hear it from our head coach a lot, in order to be successful in life, you got to be able to outwork everybody else. And so it doesn't really matter if it's video, it doesn't matter if it's production or even sports. Unless you're literally in an office setting or a factory setting where your supervisor says you're 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, 40 hours a week, and that's all you get. A lot of people out there have to put in the extra work. They're working Saturdays. I remember going to my friend's house. His dad was a businessman. He'd always be on his emails Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, and have the afternoons off. But he was a successful businessman. So I think in anything in life, if you want to be successful at something, you're going to have to put in a lot of work. And it's not just going to be the minimum hours what you're expected to do.
That's awesome, and that's real. I have an in-person follow-up. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hey guys, Jordan from Utah State here. Just to kind of clarify a question that I had asked earlier. Specifically, one of the issues that we're having is that we don't work in the same building as our SID and our marketing group. So we don't tend to have a lot of content or production meetings at all. And so I was wondering how many of you guys actually work in the same buildings as your SIDs and your marketing team. And for those of you that don't work in the same buildings, how do you get around that distance and kind of convince them to make sure they keep making and having these content meetings?
Thank you for the question.
We're in the same building with they're 2 floors up from us. I see them every day, so it's easy for us to get together. But Zoom meetings are changing everyone's lives, right? I didn't expect to have meetings in one day, but here it is Wednesday, and I've had 5 Zoom meetings. So I didn't think I would. I don't know what I would do if they weren't right there, except just reach out, communicate, stay in touch, do everything you can. Go to lunch, and just build a relationship that way. It doesn't have to be in a formal work environment. Find different ways to get together and talk to them and collaborate.
Great.
I can speak.
Go ahead, Blake.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just going to say I can speak on that a little bit. I think, that has been a bit of a struggle at times for us, but also it works because we have a marketing department that's across the street. But we don't work with them every single day. We'll have our weekly Tuesday meetings every week where everybody, you've got the creative, you've got social media, everybody's involved, in that meeting, and we come up with a plan and then we kind of break off from there. And we use a thing called Box. I don't know if you guys have that for how you guys collaborate your creative work, but we have it set up so any video stuff that goes up, and all the people in that group can comment on stuff. Or if there's a graphic that gets made from photos or whatever, it goes up on there. Somebody can sign off on it or comment. And again, it goes back to our whole checks and balances system. But like I said, it is a struggle at times because we work in an environment. You guys know how it is. You guys need stuff done so quick. Sometimes emails take a while. You pick up the phone and they don't answer, and you kind of wish that they were all in the same building and all in the same office, but that just isn't the case. So, you know, it goes back to the whole efficiency thing and just making sure that when you guys break from a meeting on those Tuesdays, or we do, you have a plan in place and that there's a clear understanding so you can be efficient with your time.
To add on to that, like Blake said, you know, coming from Elon, we didn't really have anything set in stone like that. We didn't have meetings, like content meetings. We didn't have like set marketing meetings where we just sat there and talked about, like when we did, it was like once a semester, maybe. So it was rare. So to that point, and also the SID wasn't even in the same building as me. So I would make points to go over there and talk to them, call them every day. If I was annoying them, so what? Like, we have a job to get done, and I want to make sure that we're all aligned with the same plan. But to echo what he was saying about Box, it's been a huge thing for me because, you know, instead of me having to hunt down somebody to show them something, to be like, hey, this is what we've got for today. You know, you just post it on there and then they're going to respond to it when they get to it. Yeah, sometimes it's not as fast as you would like, but it's an easy way to get something up and get a notification in somebody's inbox saying, hey, this is done. Look at it. Let me know if it's good so we can get it up on social.
Okay, awesome. Now, this question I personally also had for Jacob, but I want to know from everybody. You come into a new situation or your first post-production director job. What do you focus on first? Get equipment or hiring the right staff? What are you focusing on first?
I would say the very first thing that you have to make sure you get across to everyone, and I'm lucky because when I came on at USC, they wanted to do a whole news article about me and Will, which was great, but make sure everybody in that building knows exactly what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and when you do it. I mean, like, you got to make sure everybody in that building knows you. You can't just get hired somewhere and just start showing up to work one day. You have to know every single player, every single staff member, have their name and number in your phone, talk to them all the time, have great communication with them. You know, I got hired obviously in the middle of a quarantine, right? So it's like I haven't met anybody that I work with yet, but I'm having Zoom meetings with them every single day. I'm talking to them all the time. We're collaborating all we can, and they know, I guess, my process already before I've even met them, and you just start building that relationship and that trust. So, you know, as soon as you can do that, you'll be well on your way to, you know, everything else you got to do. But you have to get that going first, is your relationship with every single person in that building. That's all I got.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Hey guys, can I jump in on that to follow up? Because Jacob's dropping some serious life nuggets here. This is great, and everybody else is contributing. But as an elder statesman like George in the industry, not just sports related, but also I'm the guy that trained all the Amazing Race and the Survivor camera operators when they moved over to high def. I'm the guy that those high-end vendors and production companies leaned on when they didn't know how to work something through the production pipeline. So when you guys are talking about making relationships, all this stuff is great. Because let's be honest, trust is important. When you're a kid, if you didn't trust your parents, you weren't getting out of the house. So how did you sell your way to get out of the house? You got trust, right? Then you got to be able to sell yourself. So everything that's being mentioned here is huge. But don't forget, not just specific to what you know, for the areas that maybe you may not be fine-tuned in or you maybe have some question marks, don't be afraid to lean on your trusted vendors, whether it's someone like a Sony or if it's a value-added reseller like Betsy and Brenda at Media Right, or if it's an integrator like Alpha Video or Diversified or whoever you have relationships with. Don't be afraid to call on those, but you can't unless you actually have trust and you know who they are, just as Jacob's saying. So I'm happy to sit in on this and see the knowledge be extended. There are a few of you that know me well. I've been around for many, many years trying to sort of provide sort of more value add to you guys by attending the groups, doing camera sessions and things like that. But you know, there's only so much I can get to. So feel free at any time to reach out to me and my counterpart. But if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so. I'm in the CSVA group for now until they reset that. But this has been great, and you guys you're dead on. You got to work hard. You got to have trust. You got to sell yourself. And as Jacob mentioned, he's in the new role. He hasn't met anybody, but he's already burning it right now. So whoever asked the question of, how much of my life am I going to have to dedicate to be in this industry? If you want to be in the industry, you're going to live it and breathe it. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the industry. And it's not any different in football or any sports as it is corporately. You got to live it, and it becomes life. So the work-life balance is more of a corporate thing that's thrown out there. More often than not, it's not reality. Jacob mentioned when you do have the time, you need to use it. So you got to plan ahead. The last thing you want to get into is being reactive to stuff because you're not going to get as much accomplished. Plan ahead, build trust, sell yourself, be that brand that everybody talks about, which I can't stand it, but you have to be your own brand, and you have to be basically an influencer. If you are, you become a leader. A leader gets relied on. A leader gets trust, and now you're moving forward.
Mike, you're killing it. You're killing it. You deserve a raise, man.
Tough, Mike.
Anybody else have anything to add on getting into a new situation or a department, anything that you would want to figure out? Mike, that was awesome, though.
Thank you.
I think just to kind of piggyback on that, like it does go both ways because like we're in a situation at Arkansas where, we got a new staff. Well, in that situation, the video people were still here and it's a lot like going to a new place, but everyone's coming to you, making yourself valuable, getting to know these guys, the new people that you're working with, proving your value to them. It's not, you can't afford to sit back and wait for everyone to come introduce themselves to you. You got to be outgoing. Obviously we all know coaching staffs change all the time, whether it's everybody or just a few people, but making it your priority to seek those people out, to me, goes a long way because they're not all going to come to you. And that's how you prove your value and helping them get to know you by taking those steps yourself.
And I would say on top of that, also figuring out who in your program does not want to be there and is not someone you can rely on. That's okay. That's okay to learn. You don't criticize them necessarily, but at the same time, you have to understand everyone that you're working with, just like they have to understand, you, and you can't be afraid of that. So it's okay to figure out who's reliable, and it's okay to figure out who's not reliable.
Okay, awesome. I just want to give everybody a reminder. We've got about 10 minutes left in the general session. Everybody's more than welcome to stay after if you want to talk a little bit more, but we've got about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any in-person questions? Any more brave souls? These are all awesome, so just keep them coming.
Yeah, I got a quick question. Josh Phillips, Penn State. With the way production is heading, what would you guys suggest being like most important aspects to learn and to be able to understand going into like the future of production?
Good question, Josh.
Who wants to get going?
Go ahead.
Max, if you got it.
Max, you got it, man.
I'd say just you have to be able to evolve every second. There's always new effects. Like we saw the scribble effects like in 2018. And everyone was hopping on that trend, just being able to follow and keep up to date. So it's always just learning and trying to learn things as quick as you can. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
I was going to say no After Effects and know it well, because After Effects is a key nowadays, and you need to know it inside and out. I'm still learning it myself. I wish I knew it way better. Blake knows it pretty well. I've learned some things from him. After Effects is a huge key, way more than Premiere at this point.
Taken 2 week-long After Effects boot camps that repeated each other. Take it once, and you can take it a repeat for free the second time. And I still don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, After Effects is but it's so important. Like I see what Max does. Like, so our video with the Stranger Things that won the Savvy this year. We've got Max was nice enough without being asked to record himself during the edit process. So we've got, a 9-hour time lapse of him creating that whole video. And I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. We've got it. If anybody, if anyone wants to see it at some point during this, it's pretty cool. But After Effects is just knowing that he did it almost all within After Effects tells you how important it is.
And to add to that, I'd say the next thing is like the Cinema 4D, people like Gibson Hazard. I think that's going to be a lot bigger in the future. It's like Cinema 4D, Blender, and Maya. So if you can learn those programs before, like Ohio State has been doing a lot with 3D models. I feel like that's going to be big in the future.
I would say don't ever undermine the power of good storytelling. At the end of the day, that can be on a consistent basis when you have to produce a lot of stuff and everybody, has a good relationship with you. Your job as a storyteller, getting guys to, giving them advice on maybe what to say or how to, present themselves or whatever. You can do projects a lot easier that way. Having that as a skill set, do not ever undermine that.
Yeah, I would have to echo that, Jake. Something I was kind of thinking in the back of my mind too is, and I was trying to mention this, Josh, but first I want to say, Max, great video on your Stranger Things, man. That was solid. But no, I was going to say, like, try to find out what your identity is. Like I hear like special effects, storytelling, like what is your identity? Like I hear like one of the other vendors that we have, WPSU, the producers that work for ESPN, he's working with us now. He always uses a line like, oh, I don't know how to do IT, or I don't know how to share files, or I don't know how to use a camera. I'm a storyteller. Okay, that's fine. If you're a really good storyteller, that's great. Like you've got some sort of role that we're going to need. If you're a really good shooter, like that's awesome. Like you're going to have some sort of role. If you're a special effects guy, you're going to have a role. So I agree with Jake. Like in our industry, we have to get stuff produced in such a rapid time that, there's a reason why like a lot of these high-end companies hire specialists to do special effects and that sort of stuff. So like one of the tricks that we do a lot is just surf Envato. It's a quick thing that we pay into. It lets us be creative. I usually manipulate a lot of stuff my own way, and that way we can still have some cool effects. But at the end of the day, like if you can't tell a story, if you're not efficient with your time, and you don't understand how to shoot stuff very well, you're going to struggle right there off the bat. So, the production side is one part, but you got to be able to do pre-production too. And planning is big time.
I guess to add to that, having a diverse team is really helpful because I do more of the short creative stuff, but having Hayden, he's a better storyteller, do the long stuff, and we can just specialize in our different areas. It helps a lot.
I know a lot in our industry, at least when I came up, starting back in the day, it was a lot of one-man band stuff. Like I remember going back like 2010, like production kind of wasn't really much of a thing. Social media really wasn't much of a thing. So like a lot of video coordinators had to do both. And that's kind of how I started out. And then I've kind of evolved, and now I've got Joe to help. We've got a student crew that helps, and that's great. We have a second vendor, WPSU, with full-time staff that also do some stuff too, which has been great. But I think at the end of the day, like as a person getting into this business, try to find out what your niche is. Because it goes back to what Mike said. Like if you don't love it, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be very successful at it because it's going to feel like work and it's not going to be fun. Like the stuff that I do is fun to me. That's why I think I'm good at it, because I research the stuff just for fun. Like it's more like a hobby. I just get paid to do it. It's awesome.
If you don't mind me jumping in, don't forget this part as well, Josh, is that don't forget to research the next thing on social media as well, right? Now, it's kind of funny the way that I spoke about this at CSVA last year in a different way, but if you're going to ask your students what's the new hot thing, well, that's already current, okay? Mm-hmm. You need to keep working, towards, you don't have to be a creep about it, but like, ask family members that are younger, right, that are in high school or, maybe even middle school, because they're bringing up the next generation of stuff that you can plant your flag in, if that makes sense, okay? Because TikTok was already a thing within the younger generations. We're just catching up to it now. And it seems like there's a new thing every year anyway. So just make sure that you're going to keep track of what the next big thing is on social media. Because if you look on social media, like those videos, I mean, there's not a lot of actual post-production work that goes into it. They found a way to relate to people, especially TikTok. So that's just my 2 cents.
Another thing is you don't have to be the first person to necessarily do that technique. You just have to be the first person to bring it to football. So there's a lot of other types of videos that you can watch to bring that technique to football. That's what I've done a lot in the past.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Does anybody else have questions? We're probably going to take maybe 1 or 2 more before I wanted to end it on something special. So anybody have any in-person questions they want to get off? Probably 1 or 2 more in respect of the presenter's time and everybody's time.
I got a question for JB. Not sure if he could hear me. It might be more personal, but just professionally, what is your mental challenge going from a obviously very popular national championship team at LSU, which obviously you were pretty well recognized, to now moving to Southern California, Los Angeles? What kind of challenges do you see in that, and what were the pros and cons of making that decision professionally?
Man, that's a really, really great question. I think for me, like I've said before, every job I've had, I've been an intern or the first full-time person in the role. I've been moving from city to city. It's not easy. And, I think for me, knowing that no matter how USC treats me, which I know they're going to treat me great, but no matter what, I can go down the street and get another job. LA is the center of the video world. And so that in itself was a huge part of it. But at the same time, it was a brand new department. I can build it from the ground up. I would say one thing, like seeing kind of like how, like the SEC network, for example, there was all this build up, 10 years ago or whatever, of all these departments trying to build up for the SEC network. Well, then all of a sudden the technology changes and network isn't all that big of a deal anymore. So there's all these big staffs for the SEC network, and now it's all about social media, right? USC was in a unique position to where they wanted to start from the ground up, really empower us as storytellers, as creators, and really say, hey, what do you want to do? Let's do it. And we got a lot of plans. You're in a place, I'll be honest with you guys, I live in Santa Monica now, and I sat there on my rooftop as, there was peaceful protesters, and then there was people that went through the city and rioted and looted and things like that. And it's really crazy to see stuff like that up close. So when I'm in a place like Los Angeles where I can really be on the front lines of what's going on in the culture and what's going on in the world, and see what's important to people and how we communicate that message with our players, because our players live it every single day. They're a part of the world every single day, and we have to be able to be tools of expression for them, right? We have to live. We almost have to say, hey, like, what's going on in your life? How can you express that through me? And as a video creator, a lot of it is on the field, right? A lot of it is what our guys do on the field, in the weight room, all that stuff. But man, you have no idea once you get to know these dudes what they do off the field and how we can show that off. And being in a place like USC, like Los Angeles, where there's so much that happens off the field, that's a part of our challenge as a brand, right? Like Los Angeles, like, if our fans don't want to pay attention to USC, they can pay attention to 100 million other things here in Los Angeles, and we got to kind of stay up with them. It's not like, another place where, that's the only thing going on in that town is that college football team, and then they live, breathe, and eat that football team. That's fine. But like a place like LA, where, really what we do as storytellers to show the value of our guys on the field, off the field, there's so many opportunities in a big city like LA. There's so many opportunities, in a new department where you can really build it from the ground up, and, kind of have a different mindset. I don't have to worry about a lot of, structure or anything. If I have a great idea, let's go do it. And, to me, there's just so much opportunity here to tell stories and to make an impact. And that's what made me want to come here.
That's awesome. We appreciate you sharing. Does anybody have anything else to contribute in terms of a big major move to a different area, how they adjusted the culture, the school, etc.? So go ahead if anybody else has anything to add.
I guess I could talk about coming from, North Carolina and then moving all the way up here to Pennsylvania. Luckily, though, I've been blessed to work for two great guys. Jevin and Blake are two awesome individuals, and they really look out for me. I mean, Jevin made things real easy for me. He got my girlfriend a job when we got up here. So, like, for me, life really was easy getting here, and I think that was really because of the relationships I was able to build fast with these two guys. Luckily, they're two genuine people, so it was easy to make relationships with them. But for me, getting here and making those relationships with those guys and knowing that I had two people that I could trust when I got here was big for me and allowed me to feel comfortable immediately. I didn't really have that period where I was really nervous about, like, oh, what's the future hold? Like, I knew these guys were going to look out for me when I got here. So for me, that was what it was.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else?
I've had enough moves that I could probably drop a little knowledge here in that my biggest advice would be try to accept a job a week before camp starts or even after it starts. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. Try to get a job in the spring or the summertime when you got a little time to get in and settle in. Although I'm not going to tell you not to take a job either because it's a week before camp starts or camp has started, because I wouldn't be doing this if that were the case. I accepted 3 different jobs where camp was starting within like 3 or 4 days of me being on campus. So like that question earlier, I didn't really get into about what's the first thing you do when you get on campus. Well, I wanted a parking pass because I kept getting tickets. And so it took a while, but that worked finally. Jacob is wise beyond his years, all-star of this panel right now, because he's gone through a lot in a really short amount of time. And he's had a career path that just keeps going up. And I think it's awesome that he's on here. I almost started talking about the reverse effect, which is going from really big programs to really small programs, and how do you survive? Those big programs showed me how it was and showed me how it could be. And so going to a smaller program, you just got to do less. You got to do more with less. I call it the MacGyver effect. You gotta be able to keep your kids interested and keep them fed and keep them happy, and don't have a tight grip over what they do and when they do it. Give them a lot of freedom to create and be the ones to decide how things are going to go in the videos, and a lot of creative freedom we give those guys, and they take advantage of it. And I think I've gotten off topic, but I don't really know. I'm old, remember.
It's all good. It's all good.
George, you're making me blush.
Bright purple, apparently. Yeah. All right. I just to kind of wrap this up, just in respect of your guys' time. Whatever job you end up taking, just kind of make sure that it scares you a little bit, right? Because then you get to really put a thumbprint on it. Maybe you go somewhere that doesn't have a lot, right? And you have to MacGyver your way through things. But that is also a golden opportunity for you to be able to put your stamp on the program and really be able to make something brand new that the program might have ever seen before too, as well. So unless anybody has a burning question, I think I'm going to wrap up the general session. I greatly appreciate the time of the presenters. But again, mixed feelings on when, starting this panel off to now ending this. I just want to end off with a video provided by some of our presenters, Penn State, actually, that I caught this week, right? And I think that will be a really good message to end on, given the current state of affairs in the world. Okay, so just hold on and bear with me while I share my screen. Sorry.
You know, the football that I know and love brings people together and embraces differences. Black, white, brown, Catholic, Jewish, or Muslim, rich or poor, rural or urban, Republican or Democrat. Long hair, short hair, no hair. They're all in that locker room together. Teams all over this country are the purest form of humanity that we have. We don't judge, we embrace differences. We live, we learn, we grow, we support, and we defend each other. We're a family. Penn State football, Penn State University, and Happy Valley provide the same opportunities to embrace one another. 12 Saturdays each fall. PSU football brings people together like very few things on this planet. 110,000 fans from all different backgrounds throughout our region, from all different parts of the state. And they're hugging and high-fiving and singing Sweet Caroline together. This is my football. This is the game that I love, and most importantly, my players that I love and will defend like sons.
Enjoy this, because the chemistry and the family and the love that we have for one another, that's what won that game today.
Ultimately, this is the definition and embodiment of what we are is all about.
So that was a heck of a video. That was a heck of a
Awesome stuff.
That was
Good
a
job,
heck of a video. You know, enjoy the free pub, by the way, guys.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. I caught that actually, Joe, when you posted about it on Facebook the other day. The importance of what we do and how we can use our platform to affect others correctly.
Can we do a questionnaire for that video?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Who voiced it over?
Nobody. It was a press conference.
Yeah.
It was coach in the press conference last year.
Can I just throw in that video was made 10 months ago?
Yeah. It was made like October.
It just came
We
out.
never released it.
Came out.
I don't even want to talk about it because I was frustrated about it for too long. It was a big ordeal, but it got posted, so we're all happy. All right.
Well, you know, especially during that time, you know, this time when that video came out, remember the power that you have as a creator at the end of the day. You can influence people positively or negatively. And especially during this time when the healing process hasn't even begun yet, you need to take part in spreading as much love and as much positive influence on this great nation. That's an obligation from a human perspective, not just from your football program. It's not, you know, trying to give pub to Penn State or anything like that. Just know that what happened in the last couple weeks is a human issue, not a color issue. So please take the time. And I know that we cannot all empathize with what our counterparts go through fully. And I'm not going to be ignorant enough to say that. But you do have the capacity to be able to attempt to sympathize. And that's what that video meant to me. And I thank you all at Penn State for making that and sending it out, albeit a little bit late. But you know what? It's at the exact right time. So again, great job on that video. I sent out the link to all the Savvy winners, and I'm sure you can reach out to these guys to analyze your video or you know, have them talk about their videos a little bit. But that was an awesome experience, awesome panel. Whether you make videos or not, there was a lot of knowledge that was dropped today. Again, like everything, we're going to drop our contact info, whatever you're comfortable with, in the feed. Okay. Whatever you're comfortable with, whether it's a phone number, email, just a name. If you're not comfortable with anything, you're not comfortable with anything. That's no problem. Thank you again. Please, please stay safe and keep everybody in your prayers. Lord knows we need everybody at this time, okay, for one another. So thank you.